was another one that came in the listener questions there, just kind of, what is success from this campaign, I suppose, was the general gist of the question. Like, I say this to be realistic, not to be pessimistic, or not to be lacking in faith in Stephen or anything like that, but like we're not going to finish in the top two. Like, I think us contemplating even the fact that we can finish in the top two is extremely fanciful.
I'm not as pessimistic. I'd
Really?
give us a slight chance of splitting. I think France will win the group, and I think we need, basically, look, it would be great if we get a draw at home to France. If we need France to beat the Dutch home and away. It's a bit annoying that they play the Dutch in the opening game, actually, before maybe they hit their stride under this refreshed team. You are right, and in fairness in saying that there is a slightly refreshed look to parts of the team. It is not beyond the realms of possibility that Ireland, I don't think it'll happen, but there is, like, just to finish ahead of the Dutch in second place, just because, like, Ronald Koeman, man. Like, I mean, if they're rotating cast of managers, we've actually got them at a good time, because Koeman is one of the least impressive of these guys that if we liked. Now maybe he'll be so bad that he'll be back to Dick Advocaat midway through the campaign. But I don't know, just like, okay, and you don't want to put too much pressure on Ferguson, and we don't want to. But Ireland have not lost a competitive game by more than a goal under Stephen Kenny. So they've been competitive in every competitive game, believe it or not. Yeah. That is both a noun and an adjective. And they just haven't taken their chances. Ferguson, I know we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. He does maybe give us the chance that we might be a little bit more clinical. You're grimacing and shaking your head. I think Ireland will finish in the top two of the group. No, I don't. Am I saying that there's absolutely no chance of it? No, I'm not either.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing, though. They're gonna have to get a result against the Netherlands or France or both. I mean, to qualify from a group like this, you have to get a result. And this is the thing about the campaign. It's such an interesting campaign for Stephen Kenny for so many reasons. Firstly is that you absolutely need to beat the teams you're on a similar level with, which Ireland have struggled with performing against these teams under Stephen Kenny so far. They need to beat Greece. They need to beat Greece twice. They need to beat Gibraltar and beat them better than the time that we went to Gibraltar and Jeff Hendrick scored and celebrated in front of the airport behind the goal. That was one of the worst games and a low point for Irish football. Ireland, for me, need to be convincing against Greece and against Gibraltar. But to qualify from a group like this, you need to get a result against a big team. And Stephen Kenny needs to do that in order to get the fans on his side. Because one of the things, Shane, that people throw at Stephen Kenny is that his style is unrealistic for Ireland, and that Martin O'Neill, Mick McCarthy, and managers of the past have managed to get big results against big teams. Take the Germany result, for an example, playing a certain style. Stephen Kenny's trying to do it a different way. If he can get a result against Netherlands or against France, he could firstly win over favor with the Irish fans that still doubt him, and secondly, he could actually get Ireland into a tournament.
Yeah, but look, this is exactly why I'm arguing against our chances, is because, so if he doesn't get a result against either of the two of those, which I don't think he will, does that mean that it's been a failure? No, it can't. Like the chances of us dropping points against Greece are a hell of a lot higher than the chances of us picking up points against the Netherlands. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. So for me, if we manage to beat Gibraltar twice and Greece twice, I think that's success. I think without a doubt that's success. And that's the way I'd be looking at it. I'd be judging the campaign based on how we do in those 4 games. Right, Gibraltar, look, he has to be winning the 2 of them. But the Greece ones, it's no give me. It's far from a give me.
The Greece away is a nightmare because it's in the middle of June, because we saw how bad Ireland were away to Armenia last June. And the issue is that most of the squad playing the championship, and the championship was finished a month before. So like the players were so rusty. So I know that they're learning from that experience, and they're going to have a training camp in Turkey for a week or 10 days beforehand. And I don't know if they'll have an official friendly game. Maybe it'll just be a bounce game behind closed doors before they fly to Athens for that game. That, schedule wise, a disaster. Like the worst possible scheduling was to get Greece away in that heat in June when the players are rusty at the end of their season. So that is a big challenge. If they can win that, if they win home and away against Greece and Gibraltar, that should bring the campaign at least give us a chance of qualifying into the last, well, probably not the very last match day, because Ireland only have one in the November window, but even into October. It's very hard to judge these things ahead of time. You know, you have to contextualize everything when it comes to being a success or not a success. But, you know, like, I mean, the last campaign was over before it began almost for the World Cup. It can't be like that again. I really don't think it can be like that again. You know, and it shouldn't be with the run of fixtures, because we don't play. The Dutch home and away is in the latter half of the group because they're involved in Nations League games. So, you know, like, it's too complex to get into wondering about the permutations for a Nations League backdoor at the moment. But success is basically, I would agree with Shane, beating Greece and Gibraltar home and away and making, you know, something in your head is just, well, look, if we get a draw against the Dutch in October, in September, you know, and it's alive at that point, that's success for me.
Like, okay. Like, I'm just looking at here. So they've announced their squad, obviously, the Dutch as well, right? I know we don't have them for a while, but like Aki, Botman, Van Dijk, Frankie De Jong, like how do we think we're going to be able to pull it up to these guys? Like, they're on the standard of their player, Dumfries. The standard of their player is at a completely different level. Anything that we have, like, would Evan Ferguson make the bloody Dutch squad? I would.
He would.
You're being tendentious there.
He would.
And Matt Doherty is a pretty similar player to Dumfries.
And
come on now, you're sharing Denzel Dumfries with too much praise there.
I'm going to make a counter argument to you, Shane. Germany were World Cup champions when we beat them.
Yeah. I don't know.
You know, like, I agree that it's, you know, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a hard campaign. But for me, the question is, if getting 12 points off Greece and Gibraltar and getting nothing off Netherlands and France is a success for Stephen Kenny, then how do we ever progress? What's the next step under Stephen Kenny? Because if that's a success, if not qualifying for a tournament, because we beat the two teams that are similar level to us and didn't do anything against the two better teams. What is the success for Ireland under Stephen Kenny? Where do we go from there?
Well, this is my exact fear, and this is why I'm trying to play down expectations. So what if we beat Gibraltar and Greece home and away and lose to France and Holland home and away? We sack Stephen Kenny.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying where does Stephen Kenny go from there? Like, what's the next step for him?
Into a World Cup qualifying campaign. For me, 100%. I think that would be reasonably par for the course if that's how the results go, and on we go. Disappointed not to have qualified, or as Gavin says, I tried to read the Wikipedia page about how fucking qualifying works if and when we finish third, which I'm absolutely nailed on for me that we finished third, because I think he has progressed enough that we are now good enough to be able to beat Greece home and away, but we're not good enough to be able to beat the other two. So I think it's nailed on we finished third, which by all accounts makes fuck all difference. Doesn't matter whether we finish third, fourth or fifth in our group. And then from there,
it's literally everyone else. So the mad thing about this playoff system is that your results don't matter, but every other result does. So it's too early to say it, but there is that We Are Global Football account. There is one account that I follow because it basically gives me all the answers to this. And it gave us earlier today a 45% chance of making it into the UEFA Nations League qualifiers, which I have to say, I didn't understand the system. Slightly lower than I was going to guess.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody who truly understands the system, to be honest. Nobody truly understands what's happening.
Read the Wikipedia page, lads. It'll actually make your head blow up. Like, it's just madness.
You just take it 1 week at a time when it comes to these games, and what competition are we playing in this time, and what does this mean if we win, and then figure it out as we go along, essentially.
And you're completely right. I never thought and I completely agree with you, but I never thought I'd turn into a cliched manager when someone asks me, and how's the playoff system going? Oh, we're just taking it week by week, you know, just one game at a time.
I mean, that's how it has to work. Otherwise you just go insane. But we do want to talk about other things other than Ireland, and we will get to them. But Shane, just to finish on this, right? Just to finish on your pessimism. Cobh Ramblers last season, 14 points in total, I think they finished on, and currently they're sitting second in the table. I mean, before the season started, like a lot of people might have said, "Oh, no way, Cobh will be second by this point in the season. There's no chance. There's better teams." You just went away and beat Trinity United, who've been really strong in the first division. I mean, like, do you not take optimism from your own form that Ireland could go and overachieve?
Use my current success against me, why don't you? And I love this move. Like this is a brilliant move. So it is. No. What I have tried to do in the topsy-turvy world that is League of Ireland, where teams usually go from winning the League of Ireland to being relegated for financial irregularities or something like that fairly quickly after it, is not a fair comparison. In the same way that, by the way, lads, I've let you slip that one past fairly easily. Denzel Dumfries. Matt Doherty is on a par with Denzel Dumfries. Denzel Dumfries is starting week in, week out for Inter Milan, who were third in Serie A and into a Champions League quarter-final. And you're comparing him to a fella who cannot get a kick of a ball at Atletico Madrid. Like, what?
Well, Doherty's only just in an Atletico. He has to give himself time. And he hasn't given the chance to prove himself.
A long time since Matt Doherty's been a regular. I'm a Matt Doherty fan, but no, we're clutching at straws.
I think that Denzel Dumfries is a very overrated player. He was brilliant for about a game and a half of the Euros. Is that Inter? Let's be like Serie A, not a very strong level. Now let's be brutally honest here. Napoli are brilliant, but the rest of Serie A not really up to it. Like Gareth Southgate's talking about turning his players in the Championship rather than pick the two lads he has at Roma.
3 teams in the Champions League quarterfinals, not bad.
Yeah, but they got easy draws. Porto and Inter got Porto, and just we're so lucky to beat them. So lucky. AC Milan got fucking Tottenham. How easy draw was that? The hollowed out husk that is Antonio Conte's Tottenham. And look, Napoli are, of course, legitimately brilliant, but they're way ahead of the rest in Serie A. I honestly don't think that Matt Doherty's that much worse than Denzel Dumfries. They're slightly different players. I think Denzel Dumfries probably has a faster straight line speed. Is Matt Doherty a more cerebral, silky footballer? Yes, he is, and that's the kind of he's just the kind of footballer I like.
But we're also comparing one of our very best to a player who's well down the pecking order for them. Like,
oh, he'll be their starting right back or right wing back, wasn't it? Koeman talking about not picking Frimpong of Bayer Leverkusen because he wants a guy who is more used to defending, which will be Dumfries.
Yeah, and now it's your turn, Enda. Explain to me why Oma Bamidele is better than Virgil van Dijk. Let's go.
Well, he's younger, so that's one point. No, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the Ireland squad is the same caliber as the Netherlands or the France squad, but I'm also very aware that international tournaments can throw up some weird results. And yes, it is the eve of a new qualifier. And yes, I am doing that thing that every Irish fan did before the Euros when Croatia and Spain and who else was in the group, Italy handed the arses to us. But I don't believe going into a tournament completely pessimistic in the opportunity that we could nick a point or 2 or 3 against these teams is completely out of the realms of possibility, considering we are probably on the fringes of a new era of Irish young players in that Nathan Collins is still young, Oma Bamidele is still young, but Bazunu is starting in, week out in the Premier League. He's still young. Josh Cullen is going to be playing in the midfield in the Premier League next year. He's not that young, but he's youngish. And then Evan Ferguson's the most exciting talent in the Premier League at the minute in current form.
Players being young doesn't give us a good chance of beating France.
No, I'm not saying that,
6 months.
But what I'm saying is I'm more optimistic about Irish football than I have been in 12 years. And you're killing that. You're killing that, Shane.
Shane, you must surely think that Josh Cullen is better than Frankie de Jong. I'm sure you've said that before. Sorry, no, I realize we've kind of probably gone on for this a little bit too long. Basically, I don't think it's impossible that we finish in the top 2. I'd give us a 13% chance of finishing second ahead of the Netherlands.
How did you plug that number?
I've got an algorithm.
Fair play.
Shane, do you want to give us a percentage on finishing in the top 2?
8.
There's only a 5% difference. Why do we argue for so long?
I'm very surprised that you're 30. I'm very surprised you turned around and said 13 after all that argument. I thought you were giving us at least a 33% chance there.
And I'm going to 19% out of spite there. Mark me down 19%.
Makes total sense. ChatGPT might have the correct answer to this. I'm not sure. We'll refer to our AI overlords later on in the podcast.